Are we ready? Can everyone hear me? Karen Seashore is currently the Director of Undergraduate Studies. She's telling me not to read this, so okay. Karen is the Director of Undergraduate Studies at the University of Minnesota. What I really want to say, there's a description of her in your materials, and what I really wanted to say is that Karen Seashore is a giant. But in the field of school change and school improvement, there are just a finite number of people who have consistently done studies over years that have informed us all. And when a new book comes out that Karen has written, I get it. In the world of school effectiveness and school improvement, she's just almost by herself. She's a Regents Professor and the Robert Holmes Chair of Ideas in Education at the University of Minnesota. She does research in organizational theory, plan change, and educational leadership. Karen has written with essentially every big name person in the field. She's done a tremendous amount by herself, but I was looking it up this morning, and you start with Matt Miles, the wonderful Matt Miles. Ken Leafwood, Tony Bright, Ellen Marks, Louise Stoll, Bill Murphy, Jim Spillane, William Firestone, our own Lorna Earle. I started counting citations and I got to 10,000 and stopped. It seemed like enough. Today, if you look, the font size 4,000 up there, you see she's going to be talking about redefining the role of schools and schooling, public value, and education. Would you please join me in welcoming Karen Seashore?
It really is a tremendous pleasure to be here. This is actually the third keynote that I've been privileged to give at ICSE, and I was surprised when I was asked, because I thought, well, three strikes and you're out is a baseball term in the United States, and I thought maybe it was a reference to my age and what I should be doing next, but it caused me to actually go back and think about, A, what I'd said before when I've talked to ICSE audiences, but also think about ICSE itself and how ICSE has fit into my own intellectual journey. So what I'm not going to be doing today, and perhaps you'll be delighted since you've all been listening all day to lots of facts and figures and specifics about particular initiatives and research results, is I'm not going to be talking about that today. I'm actually going to be reflecting on the subtitle of the conference for this year, The Past, Present, and Future of Sustainable Effectiveness. And I think that it's the right time to do that. ICSE, this is the 27th ICSE conference. If you're a 27-year-old person in the United States, your parents are breathing a sigh of relief. You are finally off the parental payroll. You have a job of your own. You are living by yourself. You are launched, as they say, as a mature adult. And I think that Alma Harris's her first column in the ICSE Express really pointed to that, and I use that also as an inspiration for thinking about what I should talk about, because as she has said in that is that ICSE has grown. It started out as a couple of Dutch people and a couple of English people over a warm beer in a cold climate, and 27 years later we have more than 30 countries represented. We have not only an annual meeting and a spun-off journal that is of tremendous reputation, but we have something else that says this is a mature organization. We're now beginning to have networks of people who meet in between, who talk to each other, who are profoundly interested in the future of this professional organization. So, we're like a family. Some people have said sense like a family, and like all families, we have had our internal conflicts over the years. I have looked at most of them with some interest because since I have my feet in most of the different, the different networks in one way or another, I never felt as if I could participate in debating who was more important. Is it networks? Is it leadership? Is it effectiveness? Is it improvement? They're all important to ICSE, and I think that that means we're in a different place. It's time to have the conversation both about our past, but perhaps a little further in the past, about our present and about where we need to go. I also think it's a very good time to start having this conversation inside ICSE because, at least in my experience in the countries that I work with most frequently, new conversations are beginning to emerge. And I will talk about that a little bit as I go on. And one other preliminary comment, why did I choose the term public value? I did it in part because of convenience. The University of Minnesota had a large and international conference about a year ago which asks the question, what is the public value involved in a wide range of social institutions? So they brought together unions and religious organizations, various kinds of ministries, higher education, health, and said, how are you really thinking about the public value that comes with your sector? And it was obviously a very interesting and totally chaotic conversation, but I was asked to write the foundation paper for K-12, and so I began to think about public value. And it fits into the ICSE agenda quite well. So let me move on. One of the things that I said when I started to talk about public value is that when we think about public value in education, we have to remember how much older education as an institution is than most of the other social institutions that came to the table, with the possible exception of religion. We didn't have public health services in 1200 BC, but we know with some certainty that there was a state system of education 1200 BC. 900 BC, there were requirements for education for all children who lived in the Jewish state at that time. We're talking about an institution that is so central to the way in which societies define themselves that we are not really talking about something that is like many other institutions that come and go. It's fundamental to the way in which people organize themselves to get their work done. And that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to go say we have to go, in order to move forward the future of sustainable school effectiveness, we also have to look backward, perhaps a little further than we usually do. Now, this is a PowerPoint presentation. I tried to do Prezi once and it failed me. And I know that we've been subjected to several already today, so I'm going to say, I'll try not to do this. I'll try not to be boring. I will try not to talk too long. I will try not to put too many words on my slides so that you can't read them. There we go. I've done this before, mind you. Some of this probably will occur, but I will try to avoid what we call death by PowerPoint. So, if I don't succeed, please get up and leave. Okay, I want to start with where we are right now and then come back to where I think we are right now. There's a whole set. We live in this very flat society now, and there's a whole set of assumptions that are part of the epistemic global conversation that I think we need to acknowledge. And the first of these is that education and schooling can produce individual skills and knowledge in a relatively short period of time. We can put a child into school at the age, whatever starting age there is, 4, 5, 6, 7, and approximately 8 to 12 years later, they will emerge at the other end with something that is marketable, that will serve them, launch them into the rest of their life, whether it's further education, employment, or something else. We assume that. The second thing we assume, and this is newer, is that education drives economic development. Certainly, this is language that anybody who lives in the West is familiar with. It's also language that's part of the World Bank, any investment community. So when you go into countries that get loans from other countries, the assumption is if you improve your education system, you will become more economically viable. There's some evidence to support it. It's not as strong as some economists say. A third assumption is really important and is, again, probably the most recent of these, is that because schools can do this work, they can develop skills and knowledge, that they are the drivers of the economy, that they should be held accountable, publicly accountable, through measurable indicators. Those vary between countries and the way they think about them. In my country, for example, the last state to develop a measurable indicator system, as Jim pointed out the other day, was Nebraska. They held out until 2 years ago. So other countries still don't have testing in the same way, but they have indicator systems, and if nothing else, they get all excited when the PISA results come out. So that's a start. These are all reasonable assumptions. I agree with them, but they're insufficient. And I think that's where we need to go when we start thinking about the conversations first. Education is an incredibly complex system. Learning is tremendously complex. Jim started with that. Everybody here who's ever been in a classroom, whether it's in higher education or in primary, secondary education, knows that it's very hard to predict exactly how what you do will affect the learning of somebody else. And yet we see today so many simple solutions that are being proposed largely by people who have not got the kind of rich and deep experience that exists in this room. So we need to go underneath the layer of the simple solutions, mostly which are inadequate, and start thinking about what is it that we are trying to do. And I went back as I started to think about this to a French philosopher, Montaigne, who wrote in the 18th century, and I do not need to read to you. Can everybody read this wherever they are? I think the important point of this quote is the second one. The greatest and most important difficulty known to human learning seems to lie, notice how many qualifiers there are. It seems to lie in that area which treats how to bring up children and how to educate them. It's so important. It's just a great responsibility. We don't know that much. Well, we certainly know more now than they did then, but let's find out what other historical traditions have thought about it. What did Confucius say? Confucius, and I still think Confucius was wise, you learn by reflection. That's the noblest. By imitation, it's the easiest. And experience, the bitterest. So the complexity of learning is embedded in that,